One Father, Healing for the Human Family by Carl King. Read by the author. Chapter 3, Father Adam. The mistake is continually made of considering these types as transitions between absolute Caucasians and absolute Negroes. No such absolute type ever existed on either side. W.E.B. Du Bois. I believe in recognizing every human being as a human being, neither white, black, brown, or red. And when you are dealing with humanity as a family, there's no question of integration or intermarriage. It's just one human being marrying another human being, or one human being living around and with another human being. Malcolm X. Wherever the dawn of civilization began, the light that shined on man was the light of our universal Father. He shined on us and placed some of his light within us. Asaph wrote about the glorified nature of humanity in these terms: "You are gods, sons of the Most High, all of you." Jesus Christ repeats the statement to his brothers and establishes the fact that humans are a special breed indeed. Despite abundant vegetation, mineral deposits, and animal life teeming on this planet, we were created on the sixth day as the final work of God. The Almighty's masterpiece was Adam standing upright, not as a black man or a white man, but as a perfect human. We have been created in the image of God, so we are like him, but we are not him. This is an important distinction because of so many who wish to monopolize and misappropriate God-likeness. As Adam stood and surveyed the animals, not finding a helpmeet, he did not walk to the top of the nearest mountain and proclaim himself king, but that is exactly the response of many in our day. Groups like the 5 Percenters, Nation of Islam, Neo-Nazis, Ku Klux Klan, and myriad other groups correctly perceive their exalted natures and seek to formulate that revelation into words. In their dogma, they promise their followers the equivalent of Satan's promise in the Garden of Eden. When you eat what we are peddling, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. However, this doctrine of glorification comes at the expense of human kinship. The end result is a demonization of all other colors as the epitome of evil and debasing self as well. Take the most prominent modern example of extreme National Socialism in World War II Germany. The Nazi machine sought to elevate the German people and a supposed pure Aryan race to the mountain. Hitler promised his followers they would be like gods, but to realize their deity, they had to stoop to the level of animals and murder millions of women and children, brothers and friends. On the other side of the divide stands the nation of gods and earths, 5 Percenters, who are pervasive in hip-hop and urban environments. This group, that separated from the Nation of Islam around 1964, believes black men are gods. This is blasphemous outrage, you may say. But wait a moment. Did not Christ say you are gods? There is an undeniably majestic, glorified aspect to our beings. However, the nation of gods and earths play the same dangerous game of king of the mountain as white supremacists in their efforts to elevate the downtrodden. If you happen to be an underprivileged child in a broken home, struggling to eat and with deep feelings of inferiority, imagine the uplift to your self-perception to hear someone tell you that you are not just some inadvertent piece of dirt or an ape that accidentally made it out of the jungle. It is the same power a young boy may feel when told he is special because his eyes are blue and his hair is blonde. He was selected by the Supreme Being to bear the image of perfection in the middle of a world going off the rails. Both sides reach out to the young with a message of salvation that raises them to the same hill on which stands the opposing group, yelling that they are devils. White power counters black power, and white supremacists battle it out with black supremacists. This is the dual-edged sword of a supremacy based on race or skin color, and the reason the conversation must be reframed beyond its current parameters. The secret these would-be enlighteners fail to realize is that Adam was made to reflect as well as reveal the invisible God, but Adam was not made alone. It is not good that man should be alone. Though the first man manifested a facet of God's glory, he did not show all of God. Likewise, there is an aspect in all of us that is godlike, but we must understand that people of one color do not alone display the fullness of his glory or his purpose. This is why none of the groups that teach exclusion as a means of ascension can be correct. There are elements and facets of God that cannot be seen in the skin tone and comportment of Africans, African Americans, white Europeans, or 19th century whites. Likewise, there are aspects of God that only women can reveal. This is why he made man and woman, instructing them to reproduce. God, through Adam, created men and women and dispersed them to the Caribbean, Mexico, Asia, Europe, and all over the world to reveal who he is. Large and skinny noses somehow manifest the Creator God. Almond, olive, brown, and pale skin all looks like him in some way. Strong muscles reveal his mighty arm, and the sympathy of a mother reflects God's concern for his children. When we murder each other, we block out a piece of the sun. As we reproduce, we magnify the representation of God in the earth. The most powerful evidence of this fact of diversity reflecting the divine is how difficult it is to nail down an exact race. Black people and white people on the extreme each snipe at one another, yet cannot agree within their own camps on what defines black or white. In The Negro, by W.E.B. Du Bois, we are presented with the concept of a black man who is as multifarious as the snowflake. Black men with ivory skin and blue eyes. Black men with ebony skin and dark piercing pupils. Our diverse color was not a product of interracial pollination. We were diverse from the beginning. There is no mold that says black, and people who think all black people look alike obviously have not seen many people of color. It is a truism to state that there is no static definition of a black man. We neither look, nor speak, nor act in a singular manner. Many have attempted to isolate the distinctive characteristics of a particular race. Legislators tried to define Negro during the Jim Crow era and discovered the befuddling truth that some blacks were as white as they. Their efforts to stamp out blackness led a few of them back to their own family tree, where men and women with whiter skin than they possessed were discovered to have African ancestry. Neither is this a trait peculiar to African Americans, since white supremacists bicker with one another over the boundaries of whiteness as well. Some experts in the field of white nationalism insist on including Jews, while others with more extreme views seek to isolate the elusive Aryan. Both groups would do well to open their eyes to the variety all around them. I remember getting on a bus in Dallas and seeing a man who appeared to me to be African American. That was the precise moment he opened up his mouth and spoke fluently in Spanish to a lady who exited the bus. Deciding to seize the moment and practice my Spanish, I sidled up to where he sat and said a few words using my best accent. He stared back at me as if I had spit in his face. In response, the gentleman explained that he only used his linguistic skills if they were absolutely needed. Though he was from Mexico, as I learned during the course of our conversation, he did not want to be connected in any way to the poor perception he held of his native country. This story is instructional for two reasons. Primarily, it shows the spectrum of color in all of humanity. But on a secondary level, it demonstrates how some people view their heritage. In his book, The Autobiography of an Ex-Colored Man, James Weldon Johnson explores the quandary of racial identity in a fictionalized experience of himself and his friends. The protagonist possesses a mixed lineage, as we all do, and feels the pressure of society to choose a color group. Johnson explores the difficulty of being an individual with white skin, yet possessed of a Negro heritage. The main character has the genetic potential to merge with white America and find safety from oppression. but he also harbors a passionate love for Negro spirituals. We are taken on a journey with the central figure of the novel as he sees firsthand the horrors that plagued the colored in America during that time. These occurrences produce a sense of self-loathing, and at the conclusion, our main character decides to forsake his blackness for a safe, mediocre life. What a tragic dilemma we force upon people when they are reduced to a box on a page. We are united as humans. We should not be divided by color. Before any of us were slaves, we were brothers. In Noah and in Adam, we meet one another in a brotherhood of man that is inseparable. We may be quarrelsome toward one another, but that does not sever our family ties. As Sister Sledge put it in song, we are family. Maybe the fact that we fight like the Dickens further proves we have the same natural father. Lamentably, man has proven more willing to divide than unite, kill than consider, and condemn than condone. Anyone willing to evaluate our similarities and suggest there is middle ground gets pelted by all sides. However, there is no absolute type of urban black who dresses, speaks, thinks, and behaves ghetto, nor is there some distinct form of African American who walks and talks white. These are dodges that cloak the reality of the humanity we all share. The brushstrokes of color and personality meld us together in the same tableau. We are all interwoven and better for all of the difference we bring to the table. Prior to visiting Mexico City, a fellow pastor and I sat in the Atlanta airport awaiting our flight. He oversees a predominantly Latino church in Memphis, Tennessee, and is fluent in the language and culture of Mexico. He had been to our destination many times and explained to me the diversity of color that would be apparent in Mexico and how their behavior differed from that of Americans. Sure enough, as we sat there, we began to see others in the waiting area who appeared to be white, black, Asian, and Native American. They were all headed where we were headed, and after speaking with some and observing others, the majority proved to be Hispanic or Latino in descent. This diverse representation from every nation, in every nation, is intentional. The reason is so that no nation, tribe, or tongue can glory as the special people. It keeps us all cognizant of the fact that we are united by one Father. The Jew who hails from the seed of Abraham is equal with the Gentile. This is what slaves understood as they sang, "All God's children got shoes." They were proclaiming to the overseer and the unbeliever a unity in something more egalitarian than the American dream. In Scripture, a certain group of laborers gets picked up to work on a project and promised flat payment to complete the job. Later in the day, as progress slows down, the foreman goes back to the corner and picks up another group and promises them the exact same payment if they stay on to the end of the day. Work drags on into the evening, and the foreman remembers some other guys who used to work with him. He makes the rounds and brings them to the job site with the guarantee of the same wage as the first guys. The group that started work early in the morning is angry. The injustice of working for the same wage as the other slackers who just showed up and cleaned the job site is too much. This is the example Christ used to demonstrate the beauty of God's kingdom. No one nationality or tongue is esteemed over the others. Everyone is brought up to the mountain to share in the glory of God. All are melded together in a beautiful painting, the human race. This extends not only to the color of our skins, but also to our existence. We are linked together and borrow the strengths of one another to become who we are. We must reject the flawed idea of a monolithic thought and aspect, because the aim of polarization is death. No matter the name or color, any misguided leader who claims deity for their subjects alone seeks annihilation for all others. We have witnessed the fruit of this ideology repeatedly through history, yet it persists today. Americans must war against this limitation of our humanity. We are armed when we turn back to our creation and remember the fundamental truths at the core of our being. We are not just made of flesh, bone, and blood. We are living souls and spiritual beings with the same Father. Now we will take a look at how the removal of this foundation caused the American experiment to turn out far different than it should have.